Welcome to the July 25th, 2023 Development Review Commission hearing. The Development Review Commission is created to hold public meetings and hearings to provide analysis and recommendations to the City Council regarding general land use policies and applications where the Commission has recommendatory power, and to render final decisions on specified applications where the Commission has final decision-making power, including but not limited to all aspects of a proposed and future development. The Development Review Commission recognizes that the creation of a desirable environment throughout the city for residents, business, and industry is a prime requisite for the interdependence of land values, aesthetics, and good site planning by promoting harmonious, safe, attractive, and compatible development that is therefore considered to be in the best interests of public health, safety, and general welfare. Any person aggrieved by a final decision of the Development Review Commission may file an appeal to the City Council within 14 calendar days after the Development Review Commission has rendered its decision. Development Review Commission recommendations to the City Council are not final. A recommendation would be what we're doing tonight with item number 4. So again, not final, and simply a recommendation. With us this evening, with staff, we have Jeff Tamulevich, Ryan Levake, Steve Abrahamson, Malin Pankowitz, Ambika Adhikari, Jacob Payne, Lily Drosos, Joanna Berry, and Eddie Garcia manning the comm. With us today on the commission, we have Commissioners Forte, Corbett, Spears. I'm Chairman Mike DiDomenico, Vice Chair Andrew Johnson, and Commissioners Cassano and Schwartz. Tonight, I imagine most of the people here are here for item number 4 on our advertised agenda, but we do have several matters to address before we get to that item number 4. But I'll just go over some housekeeping matters ahead of item number 4. If you wish to be heard or speak on any item on our agenda, please fill out one of the white cards. They're in the back. Bring them up to the front. Joanna will take them and get them to me so that we make sure not to miss anyone. I'm just skimming through. Linda, did you already look? Are they all for case 4? Okay. Yeah, double check for me. So if you're here to speak or to be heard on items 2 or 3, and that's the Valentine Francis or the Radiant Being LLC cases, it is our intention, we discussed those 2 cases in our study session, and it's our intention to vote on them as a part of our consent agenda. And what that means is we'll take one single vote to approve both those cases, vote on them in the affirmative. And so anybody raise your hand if you're here to be heard on any of those 2 cases. Seeing none, we'll leave those on the consent agenda. Item number 1 on our agenda, we have 3 separate sets of meeting minutes. First, we discussed all 3 sets in study session. We have no changes as drafted, so I would call for a motion for approval of the May 23rd study and regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
I would make a motion for approval of the Development Review Study Session of May 23rd, 2023, and the regular meeting of May 23rd, 2023.
Do we have a second? Second. Moved and seconded for approval. In this particular meeting, Commissioner Corbett was in attendance, but Commissioner Schwartz was not, so 6 of us will be voting on that. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 6-0. We now have 2 sets of minutes for June 13th, 2023. Do we have a motion for approval? Don, you're on a roll. Oh, you weren't at that one.
That's okay. I move for the approval of the study session and regular meeting minutes of June 13th.
Commissioner Spears.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Spears and Vice Chair Johnson. Voting on these will be 4 of us, with the exception of Cassano and Schwartz. All those in favor? Those minutes are passed 4-0 with Schwartz, Corbett, and Cassano abstaining. That brings us to our final set of minutes, June 27th. 2023.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
since I
Casano.
was on a roll and I got interrupted, I would make a motion for approval of the regular meeting of 6/27/2023.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded by Casano and Spears. And everyone here except for Commissioner Corbett will vote on this one. All those in favor? And that motion is passed 6-0. All right, that brings us to our consent agenda. Again, this is items 2 and 3. Do we have anyone here that wishes to be heard on those two cases? Seeing none, I will take a motion for approval of our consent agenda.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda.
We have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Johnson and seconded by Commissioner Spears. All those in favor? And opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now, the item that most of you must have come to hear. This is item number 4 on our agenda. This is a second hearing and recommendation on an update to the general plan, including its 26 elements with one additional element proposed for climate change and extreme heat, and the 17 maps within the document for Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050. Applicant is the City of Tempe, and I would ask the applicant to come up and present. Ambika, welcome.
Good evening, Chair Domenico and all the commission members. My name is Ambika Adhikari, Principal Planner in the Community Development. Today with me is Jacob Payne, who will also be helping me present this. So I want to make a brief presentation just to give you an update on what happened since the meeting we made last time. I want to very quickly give you a review of the June 27th meeting. And we had lots of public comment on that date, and I wanted to give that a synopsis of the public comments too. And then you have in your hand the revised draft, which is dated July 14th, 2023. I wanted to give you a very quick update between me and Jacob on what had changed so that you become updated on that one. And then we've been receiving a number of comments through the council through the DRC comment card and also the comment box that we have on the website. So we want to give you a very quick synopsis of that also. We've been sending that to you, but they were very long document. The first batch was about 72 pages. The second batch was similar. So just to help you, we'll give you a brief on that also. And then we'll talk about the next step that goes beyond this. This is a diagram that you've seen before. We are pretty much on the last leg of the last 16 months. Today is the second hearing of the DRC, July 25th, and then we go August 10th and August 24th to the council, and finally to the March 12th ratification. Also wanted to very quickly give you a highlight again of some updated numbers and statistics of the last actually 16 months. 6 pages, 6 surveys, 407,000 postcard mailings, a lot of social media online coverage, and then many comments, like 1,200 of those comments, and 111 total meetings. So a lot of outreach that we've been doing, because sometimes not everyone comes to all the meetings, and sometimes people think that we haven't done enough outreach, but we have left no stone unturned. Okay, as you know, this document that you have has 7 chapters and appendices, and then also it has the 20 Arizona mandated elements and 6 additional elements that we have. That's the cover page. So I will give you a quick highlight of the revisions included on the July 14th draft. So to do that, the DRC hearing on June 27th, we heard from 28 people. Actually, 30 people submitted the card, 28 people spoke. And there were also, in addition to that, 25 online comments were also shared with you. Those suggestions included to use a new land use categories of mixed use 25 DU per AC at some locations, and you'll see that we have complied with that. And there was also suggestions about new cultural resources area near Alameda and North Tempe. That's also something we've made the changes. And there were comments about reducing the proposed density of 45 DU AC at Daniel Plaza. We'll discuss that a little going forward. We still have left the 45 DU per AC, but it's going to be the DRC's pleasure. Then there were questions about ensuring the availability of water in the future. We do have someone from the water department. They will speak after me. I and Jacob speak for a minute just to give you an update on that one. And then we were asked to strengthen the sustainability language. As you know, there is a limit to how much we can strengthen it in the general plan. We've done that. And there were questions about building more affordable housing, increasing the number of trees, attracting more professional workers in Tempe, reducing the amount of CRA designation. That's like in opposition to some people who wanted to increase it. But both sides of the story we heard. There were questions about increasing the density to allow building more housing units because we were asked to decrease densities in some areas, but many people felt that we should continue to increase the densities. And then there were also questions about spreading out the densities much more evenly throughout the city and keeping high residential densities as per the May 5th draft, which had really high level of densities. And I'll go again support the sustainability and active transportation option. Many people supported that. Just a synopsis I'm giving of the 27th meeting, just to give you a refresher. Then you also gave us some advice. Here are some of the highlights on what you told us. You asked us to explore including the mixed use categories of up to 25 DU per AC, which you will see in the new draft. You also asked us to clarify the definition criteria for the cultural resources areas, which we've done on the general plan level. I think now it's much more clearer. And then we're also asked to review the updated MAG, Maricopa Association of Governments, Population, Job, Housing Units, and Projection, which has been done. The last one, the latest one that we have now is kind of official projection, and we have that in our general plan. And then we're also asked that because people have different conflicting ideas and opinions and concerns, to create some kind of balance on what people have said about density, cultural resources areas, and infrastructure. And more discussions about Daniel Plaza may be needed was something that you asked us. And then there were also questions about revisiting the removal of previously suggested higher density in some of the intersections. Continuing on the DRC, you also asked us whether we could codify the language in general plan. Of course, we cannot, but we can make it more action-oriented, which we've done. Then can we spread the density? Can we do building high rises? That does not necessarily equate to affordability. That's a true statement. There was also a question about the mixed use urban. Initially, we call it urban core. We have now made it a much more consistent nomenclature. It's called mixed use urban for the highest density with no cap on the density. You had appreciated the plan for addressing climate change and encouraging more shade. We are thankful for that. And then we were asked to review homelessness issues, which is a very limited scope within the general plan, but we have talked with the housing people to do that. Now, the July 14th draft that you have in your hand does reflect many of these concerns and guidance. I will very quickly go over them. I wouldn't read all of them. We did strengthen the sustainability language. We made it more action-oriented. We clarified the definition of the cultural resources area. We were asked to add some desert preserve by many of the community members to emphasize the desert heritage, which we've done. And then also there was a new classification within open space and park called natural areas, which may not be exactly man-made park, something that we have added in the appendix. And then also updated the number of housing units according to the MAG projection, Maricopa Association of Government. And importantly, we have added the mixed use, low moderate 25 DU per AC category. Many residents have asked us to do that. The initial thinking from the staff was it's not always something that pencils out very well, but we have kept it as an option and it's in the plan. And I think, we do want to respond to the community and what guidance that you've given us. And then there are many things that we've done in the map that Jacob will go into a little more specific on each one of those map areas. And then even after the 14th draft that you have on hand, we continue to get comments. I think we got something like, 40, 50, 60, 70 comments. And then those, very quickly, those comments basically, again, there are some people who want to remove the cultural resources area on their lands. And some people continue to see, they want to see higher densities, as we had shown in the previous drafts. And then, but on the other hand, there are some people who continue to tell us that July 14th draft already has higher density than that they think. So, in the planning, it's always a balancing act. You hear conflicting ideas, and we were taught in planning it's a trade-off. That's one of the things we try to do. And the Daniel Plaza, I think, is something we can discuss. I think people will have some ideas on that one. People want to continue to discuss that. Some people want to bring out the density than what we proposed. And then quite a few people have asked us to actually the higher density would be better because it will allow more opportunity for building and supporting additional units of housing and bringing down the cost and also doing the rental properties. And then questions are also about the open spaces. Sorry for that typo, that's mine. There are questions about open spaces. We do have someone from Park and Recreation who can also respond to that question. So with that, let's very quickly go over the land use map. Jacob Payne.
Thank you, Ambika. Good evening, Commission. I'm Jacob Payne, Senior Planner with the Community Development Division. So I'm just going to do a quick refresher of what land use in a general plan is and how it's different than zoning. So just remember that land use is a projection over 30 years of what's anticipated or what we want to encourage to occur. And we use this to justify and support rezoning applications as they come in. So it doesn't change in underlying zoning. Zoning still exists underneath and has to be applied for in order to change. The general plan is just dealing with the land use and the density. So things like height, parking, open space standards are dealt with at a zoning level. So here's a look at the updated projected land use and residential density map that was included in the packet. So as Ambika mentioned, one of the more substantial changes is the addition of a new category, which is the mixed use low moderate, allowing up to 25 dwelling units per acre. The areas that we have included this designation in the map are as follows. So starting from the north and working our way down, we've added this designation on the frontage of University Drive and the west side between Hardy and Farmer. We've added this designation on the south side of Broadway Road at Rural and McClintock and the 101 freeway. We've added this mixed use low moderate along Southern Avenue at some of the places that were previously designated mixed use at the 45 unit per acre mark in the May 5th draft and then subsequently removed. And now we're proposing to add them back at this more moderate 25 unit per acre density, which is consistent with density designations in the current general plan 2040. There are some areas that would be seeing an increase from 15 to 25, but this is in moderation compared to up to 45 as a middle ground there. As Ambika mentioned, the exception to that is that Daniel Plaza is still proposed at 45 dwelling units per acre mixed use, but that is something that we can discuss. This designation, the low moderate mixed use, also proposed at the intersections of Rural and Baseline, which is now keeping in correspondence to what is currently in the general plan 2040. And then that mixed use designation has also been proposed at some locations south of Baseline where mixed use already existed in the 2040 plan, and we're keeping it at the same density that it was proposed in our current general plan. And then as Ambika mentioned, we also have added some more cultural resource area. Specifically in this draft, we've added the Papago Parkview neighborhood in North Tempe. So that's north of McKellips and west of Scottsdale Road. We have changed the Gentilly neighborhood, which is along Spence Avenue to the east of Rural, south of Apache. This neighborhood was designated mixed use moderate up to 45. We're proposing it now at a multifamily low moderate, 25 units per acre, which is the same designation that it has currently in our general plan. And then there were smaller technical corrections that some people had noticed and given us some feedback that we felt were reasonable. The full list is included in the report. Just notably some smaller townhome developments in South Tempe or some in North Tempe as well that have single family products and a single family zoning, but had a 25 unit multifamily designation in this plan that we felt were a technical correction to more appropriately reflect the typology of housing in that area. And I think with that, that sums that up. And then we have an interactive map viewer and more detailed versions of these maps if following the discussion we want to have a closer look at any areas in specific.
Thank you, Jacob. So the last slide is something that I talked about before. After this, we go to the council on August 10th and 24th, and finally to the public ratification board. So Chair Domenico and the commission members, just a couple of things to close. As you know, we do it every 10 years, and it's basically a kind of philosophy enabling document. By itself, it doesn't build anything. By itself, it doesn't really give any particular right. The rights are still through the zoning on the land, but this is a good enabling document in case people want to rezone certain properties in according with the vision of the densities and the land use that are proposed here. That's the idea. Sometimes there is a misunderstanding that we are proposing projects, which is not the case, but it's an important document to give that guidance for the future. With that said, we did get quite a few questions about do we have enough water sources that I tried to respond last time also. And then sometimes there are also questions about open spaces. So on the water sources, we have Craig Caggiano, Deputy Director of the Municipal Water Resources. Maybe you can give a very quick update, Chair, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Craig Caggiano. I'm the Deputy Municipal Utilities Director responsible for the Water Utilities Division. Tonight I'm going to give you just a really brief overview of the water planning process. Tempe has a long history of proactive planning for our water demands. As a designated provider within the Phoenix Active Managed Area, Tempe is required by the Department of Water Resources to proactively plan to meet current and future water needs of the water service area, and to prove the ability to meet those demands. The water planning process involves internal efforts such as the development of master plans and evaluation of operations. It involves external processes like the involvement of the general plan and engagement with the public, and includes regular checks on the planning assumptions, which include internal actions and occur through active review of proposed development and engagement with Tempe's economic development staff. There are also external actions that involve regulatory review of annual water use reports and the designation process itself. Planning and investment in necessary water resources and infrastructure are supported by appropriately funded water rates, which allows us to ensure we have the resources needed to meet the projections from these plans. Based on our efforts and actions, I feel confident that Tempe has sufficient water to meet our demands now and into the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Craig. So just finally, if there are any other questions on some of the main ideas, we do have staff from the open space and park and recreation also. With that, we close our presentation. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, we are here.
Ambika, two things. One, I really appreciate, and all of staff, the amount of work that goes into a general plan, the 12 plus months and all the citizen involvement. You made it really easy in this latest version that we got, that we all received as a packet, to click on a link and be taken right to the focus of any changes since our last hearing. That was very helpful for me. It kept me from digging through. Also, I just looked as you were running through all the things we brought up at the last public hearing. You didn't miss anything that I had in my notes. You guys hit everything that we asked you to address, so that's fantastic. I think before we get into any more specific questions and call out to the public, just remind us all why we do this every 10 years. What's the reason, other than to try and just stay up with what's happening in the world and be more current, but why now and why the timing that you just showed us on the slide?
Thank you, Chair and Commission members. We do it to comply with the Arizona statute. The city of our size, more than 50,000 people, we need to update it every 10 years. The last general plan, which was General Plan 2040, was adopted in December 2013 and was ratified by the public in May 2014. So within 10 years means we got to get it adopted before December, and then we got to get it ratified before May. And because there's an election in March already, that's what we have kind of planned for that ratification date. And working backwards, like reverse engineering, we actually needed to get it to the council end of August, so that there's like a 6 months period for notification to the county election commissioners. So the idea is we are required by the law to update the plan or adopt the same plan every 10 years, and that's what we're doing it. Thank you for that question.
Far be it from us to not adhere to the state's laws and requirements in a timely fashion. Commissioners, any questions at this point for staff? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we are going to call to the public. We're going to take your comments in the order that they were turned in. So I have them numbered. I'll call you in that order. Just a reminder, when you get up to the podium, just state your name and city of residence. You don't need to give us an exact address. We don't need that much personal information on the record. Also, if you've never done this before, don't be nervous. Just come here, say what's on your mind. If you stumble, need to refer to notes, we'll work with you. You know, this isn't, a polished presentation. We do have a timer because there are a lot of people here that all wish to be heard tonight. We have a 3-minute timer. You'll see the little light box right next to you as you're presenting. So only speak when you're at the podium, at the microphone, so we can record it and so people on WebEx as well as people watching on Channel 11 can hear what you're saying. You're going to have 3-minute timer. The green light will be on for the first 2 minutes from the time you start speaking. The yellow light goes on when you have 1 minute left, which means start to organize and wrap up your thoughts. When the red light comes on, finish whatever you're saying and end it and let the next person have the floor. And again, if you're right in the middle of a sentence, you can finish your thought. With that being said, our first, and usually I'll let whoever's on deck, I'll let you know also so that you're ready to come up when the speaker before you is done. David Duaran and Robert Miller, you're next.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And I want to first of all state that I worked with Ambika and Jason. I respect the work that they did very much. They're hard workers, they're good people. I just think they were misguided. My name is David Duaron. Tempe has been my hometown for 65 years. And as a point of reference, that's longer than some of you have been alive. I chose to live here because of the character of Tempe. I was on the TAG Commission and faithfully attended meetings and attempted to bring attention to the detrimental effect of the tall buildings. My concerns were respectfully ignored. It was obvious that the fix was in for developers to have their way. I recognize that things change, but in the last several years I have seen changes in Tempe that are both disappointing and distressing. Huge buildings are hiding the horizon and the view of the mountains. Mill Avenue used to be a good place to go, but now I find it suitable for an alcoholic ASU student. I looked around and wondered, how could this happen? It's simple. Recent general plans were approved by voters who were unaware what they were approving. We live our lives. We've got jobs and families to raise. We trusted that our city government would protect our hometown. That trust has been violated. The foundation of the 2050 plan is based on speculation from the Maricopa Association of Government. The numbers that they put out are not so much forecast numbers as they are developers' goals. Buzzwords like sustainability and open space are salted into the 2050 plan, but at the core, it is a developer's dream. The developers presume that since they slipped the previous expansion plans past the voters, they can up the ante every 10 years. But now that we are aware, enough is enough. We already have too much high-density housing. We do not need any more new high-density housing in the future. Yes, it's true that the developers could get rich by making Tempe feel like Chicago or Detroit, but if we wanted to live like that, we could move there. We want this to stop. Quit trying to ruin our hometown. Thank you.
Mr. Miller. It's great after the meeting if you want to tell them he did a great job, or any other people you hear, but this isn't a cheering moment. Next up, after Mr. Miller, will be Shereen Lerner.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Robert Miller, live in Tempe, Arizona. I want to submit some comments regarding the city's draft general plan, which in many ways has a lot of positive aspects. That being said, there are some concerns that I have regarding some of the goals and principles that are specified therein. These are kind of general comments. The document frequently references the need for open space as it relates to current and future development. However, where this open space is or will be, how it is to be created, how it will be sustained are not addressed. This is especially true with respect to high-density development in the downtown area. The plan speaks to the need for walkable environments, but this concept will only work in certain parts of the city and not in others. Walkable environments may be effective in the area north of Broadway Road, north of Apache Boulevard, but the further south you go, the less it's effective. In addition, increasing building height and density coupled with reduced building setbacks in the downtown area may negatively impact this area's walkability. The plan speaks to the desire on the part of the city to avoid gentrification. However, the continued proliferation of market rate development in the downtown core is a form of gentrification, since these developments are not, by definition, affordable, they're market rate, and they are not workforce housing alternatives. Overall, the plan as presented bases many of its provisions on the assumption that the city's population is going to exceed 250,000 by the year 2050. At the same time, the amount of land dedicated to both public open space and recreational cultural uses remains the same as it is today. Thus, the actual per resident amount of both of these types of land is significantly reduced. And this in turn will, again, negatively impact the quality of life of our community. I could give you the actual numbers, but I'll do that offline if you wish. They're pretty significant. I would ask that the DRC work with city staff to develop additional changes to the plan that address these concerns before it is recommended for approval to the City Council. I would be happy to work with other members of the DRC and city staff to develop these changes. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate the chance to speak to you tonight.
Thank you. Shereen Lerner, Ann Till next.
Hi, members of the Design Review Commission. Thank you for letting me speak. I served, Shereen Lerner, Tempe. I served on the Technical Advisory Group as well, TAG, and I was a representative of the Parks and Recreation Board. I appreciate the hard work by the staff in preparing the document. I know they worked very hard and diligently, but I do have concerns, which I expressed at many of our meetings, and many others on TAG also expressed, which focus on the emphasis on growth, negative impacts on infrastructure and neighborhoods, and potential to negatively impact historic properties and archaeological sites in Tempe. We need to remember that Tempe actually sits on major archaeological sites, people who were here 1,000 years before us, especially the northern part of Tempe is all part of La Plaza, which was a major site. Anytime you put a shovel in the ground, you are going to excavate something from people who had lived in the past. I want to say I appreciate many of the changes to the lower densities from 65 to 45 to 25 that were included, but I don't feel that that's enough, especially in particular areas. The 2050 plan leans heavily into dimensions of growth and not enough into localized guidance regarding Tempe's neighborhoods, the parks, community culture, and heritage. Members of TAG raised these questions throughout our time there. On how to balance growth without negatively impacting existing neighborhoods, amenities, and lifestyles. I don't feel these questions were adequately addressed. There were some changes, but not to the extent, day one, we raised these questions. The plan proposes more density, and it's important to note that more density of high-rises and these bigger buildings is not meaning that it's going to be lower cost and more affordable. And I know that that's one of the ideas, is that the more buildings we have, the more affordable they will be, but that is not related to that. The reality is we may be building a lot of high-rent buildings that won't help us in the long run. Growth needs to be managed carefully. One of the things about cultural resource areas that I want to mention is that we need to be, I know that there was some concern about those, but the section on historic preservation is really not enough to preserve our rapidly dwindling historic properties and neighborhoods. We've had too much infill of high density into those areas, and it's destroying the character of those communities, of those neighborhoods. We need to maintain the historic integrity of the downtown historic core and all of the different historic areas within our community. And we've been losing that for a long period of time. We also need more open space, and as was just mentioned, that open space actually doesn't increase with the amount of population that's going to increase. It actually does stay the same, and we need to protect that. Lastly, that I want to mention is that the efforts to increase, I'll just finish this sentence, increase density in and around existing neighborhoods is not accompanied by suggestions for an increase in parks, some of the climate impacts, traffic issues, infrastructure, food needs that people have. Thank you for the opportunity to
Thank you,
speak.
appreciate it. Ann Till?
Hello. My name's Ann Till. I live in Tempe near McClintock and Southern. I was a member of the 2050 working group, and I sent a comment card on that. I want to ditto on what Shireen said. And I also want to point out that we shouldn't discount the impact of the land use map in changing zoning, because it does encourage the zoning changes for sure. I appreciate that the mixed-use 25 unit per acre concept was added and support that, but I would like to see Donnell Plaza reduced to 25 units per acre. Residents have asked for that. Absolutely no to urban core unlimited density, except directly in downtown. No along Apache, no at Farmer, and I think those should reduce to the 2040 density. And we should also spread out the growth to mix with mixed use 25 unit per acre south of baseline. The city needs to start listening to the community. Residents feel powerless and left out of Tempe's future. We need a voice. We need to engage neighborhoods early before designs are created. After the fact, postcards are ineffective. The current process lacks teamwork. It should be residents, city, developers, all working together. Create a separate continued 2050 committee comprised of neighborhoods that give them a voice, and quit letting developers decide Tempe's future. High density doesn't ensure affordable housing, family-sized units, workforce housing, homeownership opportunities, green space. The city has little control. Throwing high density at all spaces results in places to live, but not the right type of configurations that residents need for living. Those need to be integrated with the rest of the community. Don't oversaturate Tempe with the wrong housing en masse. Don't put similar housing right next to each other. Ensure diversity in housing. Quit making continuous general plan amendments after the residents vote on the plan. The impact of these non-voter approved 2040 general plan changes, approximately 40, is huge. And where's the affordable housing that came with it? Neighborhood protections require more importance. More cultural resource areas are needed to protect against rezoning. Specifically, I'd like it at Broadway, Southern, McClintock, Price. This designation has no official rules and is arbitrary right now. We shouldn't have planning selectively designating one neighborhood over another, especially when neighborhoods are in the same character area and homes are similar in age. And thanks.
That was impressive timing.
I practiced.
The next card, I don't have a last name, it just says Jason. Jason, come on down. Ms. Justice, you are following. Name and city.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Jason Adams. I came over from Phoenix to talk about this because Phoenix seems to be having the same kind of conundrum that Tempe's having right now, just on a larger scale, which is that there's not enough housing. And it kind of seems like we ran into this problem just by looking at the zoning map. Most of the area of the city is still zoned for single-family homes only. This is going to cause problems down the line as demand for housing grows. However, I do understand there are concerns about high-rises coming up everywhere, but there's always a middle ground. There's duplexes, there's triplexes. There's this missing middle of housing that's actually kind of rare to see in America, whereas I've been in other countries, they're everywhere. You can have, two houses, double housing unit with stores below, so you can just walk to them. There's no parking minimums, although there are parking lots available. It's that it's an optional thing rather than something you have to do. So maybe like instead of just saying, hey, we'll just build a bunch of giant towers everywhere, how about we'll just have the giant towers in downtown where we have most of the density already, and then have it go down as you go farther out. But instead of saying, okay, we'll just have single family zones only, why not just have it be mixed use development everywhere instead of have height limits? And if we need more capacity on transportation, we need to provide viable alternatives means of transportation other than cars, because cars are very inefficient moving lots of people. I would recommend separate bike lanes. They're very cheap to build, and bikes are better moving lots of people shorter distances. That would be better in a mixed-use environment. To say like you have a grocery store across the street, it's much smaller than your typical American grocery store. When I was in Europe, you could see these small, quaint cities, or similar population to ours, that just had housing above, and you could, if you wanted to go grab groceries, just walk across the street and come back, no problem. No need to drive there. Easy peasy. So I think that kind of approach would be much better than this weird false dichotomy between big buildings and single family sprawl, which is not very efficient. Meanwhile, the big buildings are very imposing. And as a result, we just do not have enough housing that people want to live in. So if we don't have enough housing, housing is going to be expensive. So we just need to build more housing, build more mixed-use development. And that's definitely the way forward for the city of Tempe.
Thank you. Next up will be Lisa Zyrick.
Hi, my name is Darlene Justice. I've lived in Tempe since 1965 when my first baby was born. I have 3 children I've raised here. I have 8 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren, and I love Tempe. I understand what it is to have open space. North Tempe worked really hard to get a desert preserve in Papago Park. I wrote the petition that went out, and the mayor and council sent it to the voters, and we do have Papago Park preserved. They can't build in Papago Park. I live in North Tempe. North Tempe actually is the most diverse housing in Tempe. We have Concord Village. It's the only housing cooperative with 50% of their 373 homes are HUD financed. We also have Desert Ranch Estates in Campo Alegre, high-end homes in Marlboro Park, villas, single-family residential, Papago Parkway, Parkway View, East-West Rio, Indian Bend, Cavalier Homes, and so forth. We even have ranch homes. I appreciate the way that they've addressed the desert preserves in the general plan. Our problem in our community is Scottsdale Road. Scottsdale Road does not do our community justice, and I appreciate the way they've addressed it in the general plan to help get more development along Scottsdale Road so we get the right type of businesses in that to reflect where we really are. North Tempe, I'm also going to point something out though. If the map was up there, you could see what I'm talking about. Indian Bend Wash flows through North Tempe to the town lake. Indian Bend Wash separates homes along in the East Rio neighborhood and on the west side of the Wash. On the east side of the Wash, from there to Hayden Road, there has been, that's where Big Surf used to be. That's where the ice den used to be, the ice skate. They're both, Big Surf is gone, that's vacant land, and the ice arena has been closed down. We also have a strip club there that really doesn't operate. We have a lot of things along there. The motorcycle shop is closing up. Right now, they have listed it as industrial, mixed use, moderate. So it goes up to 45 units per acre. Across the street from that is the reservation, wild open spaces. At some point, they're going to develop there. And again, we have this buffer along Hayden Road from the neighborhoods. There is all of this willingness to do all of this development downtown, try to get as much as you can possibly get in and as high as you can possibly get. We need to protect Mill Avenue. We need to protect our historic properties in that. We need to do a lot, hopefully. But look at that land that is along Hayden Road. Look at how it is separated from everybody else by Indian Bend Wash. And if we want to let's take and bump that up to high density mixed use industrial. Put it up at 65. Let's take and get some of these big developers in there. Let's get some of these things that we don't want in. The County Island has been a big success. We finally we're annexing it. We need to be, so thank you. But please look at the map and please consider what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lisa, Donald Zyrick will be next.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Lisa Zyrick, and I'm a 30-year resident of Tempe. I'm concerned about the high density that continues to exist in the 2050 general plan. Since Tempe is landlocked, the question we need to ask is, how large do we want Tempe to be without affecting city services and Tempe residents' quality of life? Just because more large high-rise buildings can be built doesn't mean that they should. We had this very discussion at a Parks and Recreation Board meeting last fall. If we continue to add residents, what type of strain is being put on city services like our parks? If we do we do not have additional land available to create new parks. So the existing parks must meet all of our needs, including those of new residents. At some point, this does not become sustainable, and all Tempe residents will suffer. Two of the Tempe City's goals are quality of life and sustainable growth and development. How can these be achieved when staff continues to ignore the will of residents? In 2014, the first character area plans were developed to preserve the things that make Tempe unique in each area. They were meant to reflect a community's vision for their neighborhood. These included managing growth, development, and amenities. The City Council envisioned the character areas as a means to address the years of feedback from residents who felt the city favored developers over residents. In 2014, city staff added high-density residential for the Discovery Business Park in the Corona South Tempe character area against residents' wishes. When I asked the developer, Jim Wentworth, if he planned to add high-rise apartments, he said no. He said he makes more money if the land is commercial. This was removed from the final character area plan amidst the public outcry with help from the City Council. Well, guess what? It is once again included as part of the 2050 general plan on page 146. By including high density where it is not wanted, it looks like city staff is not going to value or honor the desires of the 6 neighborhoods that have completed character area plans. Not only will they lose the amenities that make their areas unique, but all Tempe residents will also suffer because city services cannot support a new, higher level of population growth. It is time to value and utilize the character area plans that the City Council asked to be created, and it's time to ask residents how big they want the city to be. Bigger isn't always better. Maybe it's time to limit the growth and population of Tempe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Donald. Katie Boligitz will be next.
Good evening. Donald Franklin Zyrick, a Tempe resident. I previously submitted some comments online, but I thought it was imperative to be here this evening. I spent most of my life in Tempe, including all my K-12 years. I went to C.I. Wagner Elementary School, Kyrie Middle School, and then Marcos Ceniza High School. I'm here tonight because I care about my city and my community. I urge you to go back to the character area studies to see what residents in each part of Tempe want for their community as you finalize the general plan for 2050. Don't impose types of development that could affect the quality of life of Tempe residents. As stated on the city's website in reference to the character areas and the 2040 general plan, what's more important than numeric change in terms of population is Tempe's ability to maintain sustainable and livable communities. High-density housing development is a direct threat to these goals. I also have concerns that new high-density development will create a burden for city services. Have you seen the deteriorating neighborhood roads in South Tempe? They are cracked and worn out, while Elliott Road is full of potholes. More residents will mean more traffic and wear and tear. Our fire and police departments will see additional demand for services, as well as water, waste, and additional demand and overuse of our city parks. Even if more high-density housing is approved, the city has no way to ensure that the units remain affordable. Because of Tempe's desirable location, many of these units will likely be luxury rentals. These unaffordable units will not help our region's housing problems. In closing, I want to point out an example of what we don't want Tempe to become. I lived in Bethesda, Maryland for 18 months for work before moving back to Tempe earlier this year. Zoning laws in Bethesda allow high-rise apartment and office buildings to literally be across the street from single-family homes. You can look it up on Google Maps. We don't want a 20-story building towering over our homes and schools. Thank you for allowing me to share my feedback. Please remove high-density development in the 2050 general plan from all Tempe communities that do not have high density in their community-developed character area studies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Katie? Karen Gitless next.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Katie Bolagitz, and I live in Tempe. Unlike probably many people here, I am a renter, and so affordability matters to me a lot versus those who are homeowners. I am a board member of the Tempe Bicycle Action Group, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the organization. We first like to thank staff for all the hard work and countless hours they've put into this and taking all the feedback that they've gotten. Tempe Bicycle Action Group fully supports the circulation chapter and then enhanced pedestrian and cycling strategies outlined in the revised 2050 draft general plan. These initiatives build on Tempe's successful transportation policies and align with our mission to make Tempe a more bicycle-friendly city and promote active transportation. With year-round sun, a grid street plan, high student population, and flat terrain, we can become a cycling paradise, and the plan helps us get there. However, we are still concerned about the land use revisions that reduce density, which are detrimental to a robust multimodal transportation policy. Higher density housing not only helps provide accessible and affordable housing, but produces other benefits to the city and its residents. Denser housing reduces traffic and congestion by providing amenities close to housing and reduces pollution from commuters by providing jobs near housing. Tempe can withstand the increase in population and maintain or even reduce car congestion as long as it provides local alternatives to driving as laid out in the circulation chapter. The plan ensures active transportation and public transit remain viable alternatives by investing in people-first infrastructure like sidewalks and bike lanes. Density is good for business too. Multi-use buildings allow local stores to be successful by having customers nearby. In addition, shorter journeys can be taken by bike or by walking, and those people who ride bikes or walk are more likely to stop in if something catches their eye in the window. Everyone here knows how great living in Tempe is, so why not allow more people to experience this? Overall, higher density housing contributes to a more active, sustainable, and healthier Tempe, a future Tempe residents and future residents deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Gitlis. Next up, Robert Moore.
The last time this board met, the room was crowded and there were about 30 3-minute speakers on the topic of the general plan. To the best of my recollection, I was the only person to stand and speak of the importance to include in the general plan language that not only moves forward the nature and characteristics to grow and develop our community, but also the need to include the general plan the same opportunities to protect and preserve our heritage. Once these opportunities are bulldozed, we lose our connection to origin and heritage, the sense of pride in how far we have come, and a vision for what our community might become. I know there are those here today that believe there are more important needs that we have in the community than the preservation of pieces of character from a bygone era or cultural changes over time, or how the founding of this community came about. It is also important to know that according to economists, historic preservation can be an economic driver in a community. I ask that you respect the effort to balance increases in density that may be necessary and inevitable with efforts to preserve what little we have left of our past. The use of cultural resource areas as a tool to preserve character of structures and neighborhoods is important to this end. I do not mean to step on any toes with this last request. I respect each of you on this commission and the difficulty that you have and the work that you put in to get this job done. I am distressed, though, to know that more than one of you earn your livings in the areas of real estate or development or consultation related to either one of those. And I worry that there is potential to not set aside your work hat and give historic preservation its due deliberation, as jurors are asked to do in making their judgments. Even if your connection is tangential, I ask you each to think about whether you can give the importance of preservation of small pieces of our past the deliberation it deserves, or to recuse yourself from votes when this is an issue before you. I'd also like to point out that the 2030 Commission and support team predicted that the CRAs might need to be revisited in the future. They suggested that when they worked together with the Historic Preservation Commission to create the CRAs. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't think I said my name, Karen Gitlis, Tempe.
Robert Moore and Trevor Mazuski will be next.
Robert Moore, Tempe, Arizona. I'm going to read a letter from Sean Downey, part owner of Yucca Tap Room, regarding the status of Donnell Plaza and the redevelopment process based on community concern about its future and its proposed density increase within the 2050 plan, and I will have to hustle, so I apologize. Yucca Tap Room has been a part of Tempe for 50 years, and throughout this tenure, we have witnessed and been an active part of the city's evolution. Yucca Tap has always strove to support local arts, live music, and the community as best it could, and overall, we believe that we've achieved that mission. About 12 years ago, there was a vision to have the streetcar station at Donnell Plaza linking to the downtown, and Yucca was in favor of this plan, but like many plans, it was never realized. Since then, there have been many projects that have come across our desks but have gotten stuck before reaching realization, which could be blamed on various factors such as ownership, city involvement, financing, and the complexities of Donnell Plaza's CC&Rs. Let's fast forward to 2020, when the city passed the development baton to Donnell Plaza property owners to see if this pattern might improve. There were 2 RFQs, one that packed housing into every inch of the plaza, and there was one that was a little flat on delivering on the city's own goals. But what I believe was wrong with both concepts and was the simple fact that there was not enough actual plaza property buy-in to achieve either plan. I myself played a part in this process, asking a lot of questions and gaining what I believe was a working understanding of the pathway forward. This brings us to where we are now. I don't think many of you know, but Yucca Tap has initiated this current RFQ process and in conjunction with the city on behalf of other plaza property owners with the hope of finally bringing something achievable forward, meeting the needs of City Hall and the community. To be clear, this is not a city-initiated process. Yucca Tap and I engaged City Hall as I did with our other plaza property owners and asked if they wanted to be part of the new development effort. Openly, we still do not have a full consensus among the property owners. Frankly, I do not believe we actually ever will. What I do know is that we have a real chance to bring one of the most historic corners in Tempe back to the level of glory that it once had, and the Yuck will no longer have to carry the full weight of the plaza as things move forward. We not only welcome thoughtful change, but are the ones driving this current process, and the city is comfortably in the passenger seat this time, in a supportive position, helping us move forward. Now for how to get it done. We are a music venue / dive bar and local small business, and we openly have a working understanding of the plaza, and actually getting it over the finish line are two different things. The city is currently the city and its current administration has shown us they want to support Yucca Tap in any way they can. Past development efforts have shown us that the balance is not quite there yet between property owners, City Hall, and the community. So Yucca Tap did its research and partnered with developer Desert Viking after an exhaustive vetting and actually having toured many of their project sites. I'm going to sneak this, Sean Donnie is actually here with us this evening, so if you have any questions you'd like to ask him, we'll also present this in a letter form in its full format for you to review. Thank you.
That would be helpful. I was going to ask you to do that very thing. Thank you. Trevor Mazuski and Jack Ketchum will be next.
Hello, my name is Trevor Malzewski. I'm an ASU student. I'm currently living and working in Tempe, but I am in between Chandler. So I read the new draft changes last night, and I was disappointed to see that the city is continuing to water down the original version of the general plan. Transit access, walkability, density, these are all things that make Tempe great. They're an asset to the community, and I think the general plan acknowledges this, but we're going in the opposite direction of that right now. I believe that the changes cheapen the CRA designation, the downzonings and the reversing of the mixed uses are negative changes that I believe should be reversed. Tempe has a good vision for more mixed use and density, but I think that we need to stick with that. Finally, so I stay in the Vista del Sol student housing complex. Some things that are related to my area that I saw on the corner of Rural and Apache on the southwest corner. This is a corner where it is up to 65 dwellings per acre. There is a lot of very high density housing that is around here. There are a lot of areas that are designated mixed use urban that don't have housing as well. I believe this area is very ripe for new housing. And I know that it's going to come up because it was currently, I believe, the Vine restaurant. It moved to a different location. Right now it's currently Air Garage parking. And this location is on the market and is probably poised to be multifamily student housing, whatever, in the next few years. So I believe that simply going up one more designation from 65 to no density cap, I believe would be a positive change in that area. And would also take pressure off of other areas that students might be trying to live in, like the Gentilly neighborhood, for example, although I would like to say I'm also opposed to the downzonings there. Finally, I believe that more density along the light rail on Apache Boulevard especially would also be a positive change. I noticed there were some areas that are at 25 dwellings per acre that are directly adjacent to, so that they are literally facing the light rail. I don't think that's appropriate for that area, and so I would like to see higher density there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Jack Ketchum. Philip Yates will be next.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jack Ketchum. I am a resident of Tempe. I've been here for about 9 years, and I bought my first home just over 2 years ago now. I just wanted to address you all this evening and say that I support the general plan, but am dismayed to see the reductions in the mixed-use density that have been added to the plan since the original proposal was put forward. We have a housing crisis right now, and that's evidenced by, almost 50% of our renters are considered housing stressed, where more than 30% of their income goes towards housing. And every day, regular families are being priced out of living in Tempe. We have a large student body population here that go to ASU. And when they graduate, instead of being able to, hopefully absorb these students into our city and add to our tax base and add to our professional base of people that live here, they're being priced out. Me and my fiance are like the only people that we know who have actually been able to go from renting in Tempe for years to actually buying a home. All of our other friends, when they go to buy a house, if they're able to buy a house, they're having to go way out, outskirts of Phoenix or Chandler or other parts of the metro area. So we're just pricing out just a huge swath of people that Tempe really should be trying to attract here. And specifically with these mixed-use developments, I don't understand what the opposition is to, having these go back to be designated commercial instead of mixed use, especially along these arterial intersections where they're originally proposed. These aren't going to be inside of neighborhoods or anything like that, and no historic properties are going to be taken out by these mixed-use developments. These are just like parking lots and like strip malls and things like that right now. And if they were mixed-use development, we would just be able to use the remaining landlocked space that we have more efficiently and be able to preserve some of the open space that we still have. And then, be able to take out some parking lots that contribute to heat island effect and most of the time sit half empty, if that. And it also plays into Tempe's plan to be a 20-minute city where, if we can get more residents to live here, we have more people that work here than that live here. So that means people have to commute in to Tempe, usually driving a car. So if we get more of those people who work here but don't live here to actually move here, we'd have a much higher likelihood of being able to get them to, walk to work, ride a bike, take the light rail, take the streetcar or something like that. So I would just strongly urge you to consider that when you make your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil Yates. And Ephraim, I believe McLaughlin will be next.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I had some real problems with the 2050 plan. We really have already looked at the 2030 plan, the Urban Core Master Plan. We've seen what kinds of things that can happen if we increase the development to the capacity that we are already done. Mixed use 4 is just maximizing everything in the downtown area. You can't afford to have a lot of.
Did we, hold just one second, Phil. You say you can't hear in the back?
Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I could.
Yeah, I guess we need to point those more to the middle. There you go.
I guess maybe, okay.
Try it again.
Is that better?
Better?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, great.
Remind me if they're not, and I'll keep, all right. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Going again, just backtracking a little bit so you can hear me. We've looked at the Urban Core Master Plan. We've looked at the 2030 plan. Now we're faced with the 2050 plan. I think it's time that we look back at what it is that the Urban Core Master Plan and the 2030 plan has done for the city of Tempe. We have a lot of high rises already that aren't filled, that aren't being utilized, and can't be simply because they can't be afforded. We need more a lot more affordable housing than we have now. Riverside neighborhood is about the last affordable housing area in the city of Tempe that exists, in the downtown area anyhow. We would like to see more, or would have liked to see more focus on historic preservation. I'm a fifth generation Tempean, so I've seen a lot of things happen and heard from a lot of relatives what has happened in the past. We need a lot more focus on that. And our parks need to be more focused upon. We have a lot of parks, especially in the summer times, that don't have water parks, water features at all. The lake could have a water park somewhere, and we don't. We used to, and we got rid of it. But, you know, that's, here's, whatever, it's in the past. We need to look at what it is that we can do to help in our future with the 2050 plan, and I would like to have seen a lot more out of what this proposed 2050 plan had done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ephraim, yes. Thomas Zaworski, up next.
Last time I was here, I just kind of mentioned about saying the Pledge of Allegiance before we started the meeting. Wish that could have been done. But I like to say I like to keep the changes that were made for lowering the density for Southern Avenue, Baseline, and Rural Road. I like to keep the changes for the lower density. The reason why is adding higher density would cause more problems in just having more people, more congestion in the roads, and then the roads are going to be used more, and that means that you're going to have to raise taxes again for fixing the roads, because right now, the way that the city is doing things is they're not looking for the best interests of fixing the roads right now. They're more interested in doing orbit buses and streetcars, and part of that funding for the roads go to that. Also, the sewer system is not big here as like if we were in New York. So that means that the sewers are going to be used a lot more, and they break all the time here in every part of the city. Another thing besides the density, I would like to have street diets removed from the general plan. The reason why is it will make it harder for emergency vehicles such as fire trucks, switching 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and also when you have a bike lane in there and you have an island in the middle of the street, that can cause another problem with cars almost hitting bicyclists. I see that happen all the time down on College and Alameda. Also, let's see. Yeah, that's it for now. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thomas Zaworski and Jonan Andelson. Oh, Anderson, I'm guessing. I may be wrong.
Good evening. My name's Tom Zaworski, and I'm a 30-year resident of Tempe. And I know by looking at me, you would never guess that, but I'm not going to go on about how old I am and what it was like in the good old days. But what I would like to say is, and I've got some notes here scribbled down as I'm sitting here listening to people, and some of the comments I agree with, some I don't. But quantity of life doesn't necessarily equate to quality of life. What I and my wife moved to Tempe for was quality of life. And I see this quality of life, sometimes I feel like Rip Van Winkle. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about age, but maybe I've been asleep for at least the last 10 years, because what I see downtown is, to me, a dystopian present. It isn't what I moved to Tempe for, and frankly, I think it's what a lot of people here did not move to Tempe for. I don't recognize it, and to me, it's somewhat horrific. I do give kudos to the lower densities, and frankly, personally, I don't have a real problem with a mixed-use, low-density proposal for areas like Southern, Broadway, rural, Mill. But the problem is that this general plan, despite what's being told to you, in my opinion, is a de facto rezoning of our city, because developers will use this 2050 plan to get what they want. And any little shred of ability to build high-density housing is going to be used and shoved down our throats in the name of profit for developers. Look at Donnell Plaza. You know, we had a scare with Donnell not too long ago during COVID. There was a proposal being pitched to staff to build a 1,000-unit high-rise at the corner of Mill and Southern. That got public notice. It got into the public realm, and people were horrified. And all of a sudden, when they got blowback, that proposal, that plan was pulled back. I don't know where it is now. We've heard nothing. They've gone silent. But that, to me, is the nightmare. I'd ask you, how many people here took mass transit to this meeting? Any of you? How many people rode your bike? It's 118 out there, beautiful night for a bike ride. I'll tell you what, you won't find me on a bike in 118. And high density, high-rise housing will not make people use mass transit. They're going to use what they can, and this is only going to add to the problems that we currently have. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonan Andelson, thank you. And Roberta Neal Miller next.
All right, thank you for your time. Jonah Anderson, Tempe. I'm a graduate of ASU. My wife is also a graduate of ASU. I'm a software engineer. My wife is a dietitian. We're pretty well off for people my age. We worked hard in school, and we got good jobs. And we're married, and as we go on with life, and we want to start having children and settle down, and we love Tempe community. This is our home. We want to pay taxes. We want to be a part of this community. And I've been following the general plan, and it's hard not to feel like I'm being excluded. This exclusionary zoning that we're introducing in the recent update to the plan is just leaving me defeated. You know, I want to raise kids here. I want to be a part of the community. I work here. But with the changes to the plan, I feel like that's something that won't be achievable. And like I said, I'm an engineer, and so I think about, you know, what about the teachers at Tempe High School? What about our police officers? What about even some of you guys? When houses are going for $600,000, $700,000, where are the starter homes? Where are the townhouses? Where are the condos? Am I destined to just be a renter paying 40% of my income for the rest of my life? And I make a decent income. And I'm concerned about my friends and other people my age. Well, they have a place to call home. It just seems like we're getting to a point where there's a select few who were lucky enough to get housing 20, 30 years ago. And that's basically it. Everybody else is packed in these high rises, which I'm not totally for, packed in these high rises and small studios, you know, with like 2 people plus their kids. And then everybody else has sprawling 5, 6 bedroom houses Where's that missing middle that I heard before? I just want like a $300,000 townhouse, and they just cannot be found. So it's hard not to feel discouraged, or maybe Tempe doesn't want me, and maybe I'm not welcome here. Maybe I should move out to a place that would make better use of my tax dollars. Yeah, and I don't think this is just a sentiment from me. I think you can see a lot of the young people here feel like we are being excluded from our life. We're talking about quality of life. It's not good quality of life to not have a place to call home. And I think, speaking as an engineer, if I'm feeling this way, I don't even want to put myself in the shoes of teachers or a single mother or some of these people who may not be so financially blessed. And so that's what, going forward, I would love for you guys to think about everybody who can't make it to this meeting tonight, because they have to take care of their kids and whatnot. So thank you for your time.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
What part in general town do you live in now?
Mitchell Park.
Mitchell Park.
Yeah.
And have you lived anywhere else in Tempe other than Mitchell Park?
Your microphone's out there, Chair.
Yeah, I was an ASU student. I lived in Riverside, moved to Mitchell Park, and then I rent Mitchell Park.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Roberta Neal Miller. Merrill Darcy, you're up on deck.
Well, good evening, members of the Development Review Commission. Thank you for being here this evening. My name is Roberta Neal Miller. I'm a 30-plus resident of Tempe. I'm the chair of the Brentwood Cavalier Neighborhood Association, and I'm going to read a comment that was written by a member of the Brentwood Cavalier Neighborhood Association, a friend of mine who has also lived at that location for, I believe, around 40 to 50 years now. And I agree with her comment. She says, keep the existing development densities in the existing 2040 general plan. Pro-development groups and political donors are forcing high-density development in and around our neighborhoods. I was hopeful that proposed density increases at Donnell Plaza would be mitigated after intense neighborhood involvement at earlier general plan meetings, but it feels now as if we've just been banging our heads against the wall. We don't want and don't deserve mixed-use, high-density construction with buildings looming over neighborhoods. We had hope for transforming Donnell Plaza into a whisper of what downtown Tempe used to be, a place for artists and music and local businesses to thrive. Instead, it seems real estate representatives are writing RFPs to move the downtown nightmare of high-rises, increased traffic, student bars, and bland corporate chains into our neighborhood. Please maintain the existing density designation at 25 dwelling units per acre and focus on integrating public open space and supporting the Donnell Plaza's local arts and live music scene. Perhaps work with Local First Arizona on integrating artist work, live, live, and display spaces. Stop the ridiculous attacks that neighbors are blocking affordable housing by opposing these high-density, high-priced housing high-rises. You have proposed 5 high-rises in the immediate area east of Mill Avenue near University Drive. One of them, from a Chicago developer, is a 300-foot tall apartment tower. Downtown is no longer for local Tempe neighbors. If you listened at all to the general plan meetings, well attended over the past few months, those of us who have lived and worked and supported Tempe for many decades do not go downtown anymore. That's true for me. Please keep that urban and uninviting vision out of our neighborhoods. Downtown is a developer's money-making free-for-all that attracts only tourists and ASU students. Don't bring that into our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merrill Darcy.
Hello, good evening. Merrill Darcy, Tempe resident. And I'm kind of here because I'm glad that you're having a second hearing, but it seems that the consensus of a lot of these people here is that the entire city should be a cultural resource area. I mean, think about this. I mean, where there's so many things that are happening right now in our city. I think the limits of 65 dwelling units per acre in some of the areas is way overkill, and you've already done it, but I think there should be some kind of cap, and there absolutely should be some kind of cap on growth limits. It's like everybody's drunk on growth here. I mean, it's done. Forget it. We're only 46 square miles. It ain't gonna happen. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have one more card that was just turned in, but we do have several people online, 3 people. It's kind of several. I have a list of more, so I don't know which names do you have. You've got the actual names, so I'll just let you announce who's going to speak. But joining us via WebEx are 3 speakers. Who's first?
I thought you had one more comment to read that was just passed on to you.
Oh, no, let's go. We're going to go to the WebEx.
Okay.
We'll finish.
Well,
We'll
the
get
first
those.
one I have is Katie Jensen Ord.
Katie, are you out there? Can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hello. I would like to submit comments regarding the plan as well. I am from Tempe. I chose Tempe as my home, and I'm here because I fell in love with the place 20 years ago. I would like to echo the concerns of some of the other speakers that high density, high profile, and large buildings are not serving the residents of Tempe. Similarly to other speakers, I am concerned about the negative impact on the character of our city, the architectural character of our buildings, the gentrification of our community, as well as the preservation of historic areas. I would like to encourage reducing the amount of density, high rises, and larger buildings. I believe that our landlocked status does not require us to move up, but instead to move more creatively into utilizing our existing spaces. One area of concern is the easements and sidewalk space, which was also brought up by some of the other speakers. We see the buildings, in addition to becoming taller, are becoming closer and closer to the roadway, making walking a little bit more uncomfortable rather than more accessible. We have an opportunity with our plan to highlight our special character areas, develop our city as an innovator in space planning and land use, as opposed to continuing to build up and out with high density, low affordability housing. Our existing neighbors need their neighborhoods protected, and students and short-term residents need affordable options. Since high density does not necessarily equate to affordability, I think we can still go lower in our density in the plan and still provide enough of an increase to support growth in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ord. Is Joan Westlake next?
No, actually, I have Marlene Begay.
Marlene Begay, can you hear us? You out there?
Hi, I'm Marlene Begay. I live in South Tempe. I moved to Tempe in 1983 and moved away for a while, but I chose to return to Tempe in 2021. I have seen the community change. When I moved away, I lived in a bedroom community of San Francisco Bay Area for 20 years. That community was focused on resident satisfaction, quality of schools and services, and to retain the charm of a nostalgic, walkable downtown area with plenty of parking. Tempe has a choice for the future: to choose high density, developer profits, or resident quality of life. We've heard a lot about high density development, and I agree with the sentiment. High density development around the neighborhoods really needs to be considered. Homeowner and neighborhoods residents should have a higher say over the lobbyists and the developers. Residents should also contribute to the character area plans, and their input should be honored. I was disappointed to hear that the input that people provided was disregarded. We want quality housing plans not quantity and density. No more mixed-use, high-density construction that's cheaply constructed. And I've heard a lot of the comments on Danielle Plaza, but I think that needs to be revisited. We need small businesses to thrive and not be priced out of the neighborhood. I recommend no to high-density development that favors national chain stores and takes away from the historical charm of Tempe. The general plan has some areas with high-density housing. These areas also need to be reconsidered. And parking, improved roads, more traffic lanes, affordable grocery stores need to be figured out and how they're going to accommodate those residents. I also agree with the other residents on more thoughts on quality of living, how traffic is going to be handled, transit and housing density, how that will be managed. The transit system in Tempe does not work for everyone. For me to take public transportation to Sky Harbor Airport takes 2 hours of a mix of buses and light rails just to get to Sky Harbor versus a 15-minute car ride. If the transit system is not addressed, we will need more car lanes and more parking, wider streets, and that infrastructure. It's not going to work if we go the high-density path. I also looked at the 2030 digital infrastructure plan. I definitely needs more thought, more input. Tempe residents need an alternative to cable TV and internet now. We need higher speed fiber or wireless broadband communications to the homes, schools, and businesses. More details is needed, and we need to make sure we're not locked into a sole source with no choice. We do not want to get locked into another monopoly. We need choices, we need customer services, and we need competitive prices. I'm hoping more details would be released so that at least we have some input to review it. Being locked into the local cable companies has not been good because they just are not willing to support customer service. It took me 8 months to get the internet working in my neighborhood, and my neighbor had the same problems. But if they're the only game in town, we get no customer service. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Begay.
The final person is Elizabeth Stewart.
Elizabeth Stewart. Ms. Stewart, are you out there? No? All right, Ms. Stewart, if you're just having microphone trouble, just log in here. We'll give you another chance. We have one more speaker here in the audience, Don Hawker. Don Hawker.
Yes, my name is Don Hawker, and I'm a Tempe resident. I have about 3 points. One is would like to see the 15-minute cities and the blue zones completely deleted from this. They're total hypocrisy. I don't see city council people or you people out there in 118 degrees riding buses and riding bikes and walking with your bags of groceries or anything like that, whereas you would normally drive a car is very reasonable. And the 15-minute cities is all developed to get us out of our cars, discourage us from having cars and using cars. And it's not the city's business to be doing these things. In the Blue Zone, same thing. So I am a bicyclist. I bicycle, but I'm pretty much limited to about 2 miles because it takes me about 15 minutes to go a mile. And so most people don't have the time if they work. I'm retired. I can take some extra time, do some bicycling, but most people, that's just simply so impractical, and it's just a part of, and the people that are concerned about the high rises, that's all part of this whole thing, is to get people out of their cars because they know that they're building these high rises without even adequate parking or sometimes no parking. So I feel it's just just needs to be deleted. Right now we have these things like these blue buses that go around town completely empty except for the driver, wasting our money. The other two things I have is, one of the Proposition 300 things came up, brought up the notion, I'm sorry if I haven't been to all the meetings and read everything, but it brought up the subject of the toxic dump that we have up near the river. And I don't see anything in the plan where that's being addressed. And to get rid of that completely in a realistic manner. And the other thing I have a problem is if there's any kind of a plan for the homeless people, because we had our reunion reserved big table at a park here in Tempe. We couldn't go to it because it was encamped with homeless people. That's not a way to run a city. We were fortunate we could get into another table, but I think there needs to be a place where they can go and get some rehabilitation, get some education, get somewhere where they can maximize whatever it is that they can do and take care of that situation so they're not out wandering around and getting into trouble. So my main thing is deleting the 15-minute city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawker. All
Mr.
right.
Chair, our online person is having some issues trying to speak. She's requesting if her comments can be read. Oh, we can't get in touch with her. But she did submit written comments.
All right, well then those were part of what we were presented today.
No, they were not, because she said she was going to be speaking
Oh,
in
okay, well,
person,
if
so I
you've
didn't
got the
provide that.
comments and would like to read them into the record, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Joanna, is this the full comments right here? The 1, 2, and 3?
I'm sorry. Yeah, it starts off right there.
Okay. I can read those to the record now. So these are the comments from Elizabeth Stewart, Tempe, Arizona. I request that the current 2040 density designations remain in effect without any increase. High-rise residential development along Broadway and Southern from Priest to the 101 and along Mill, Rural, and McClintock from Apache to Elliott will negatively impact existing neighborhoods and add to the existing heat island. Number 2, Tempe 2050 should require mandatory green building code standards for all new commercial and multifamily buildings like Scottsdale did, not merely encourage them. The energy costs for residents and tenants are substantially less, the environmental impacts are less, and the initial costs are not significantly more. In addition, any high-rise construction should contain green space buffers with natural landscaping, and deviations from setback standards should be strictly prohibited. And a third point, the 2050 plan should maintain the existing 25 residential units per acre at Mill and Southern and protect Donnell Plaza's long-time live music venues and other small businesses from high-rise development. The plan should focus on integrating open spaces and supporting the plaza's existing local arts and live music scene. Thank you for considering these amendments.
Thank you.
Chair Didomenko, I apologize. We had somebody that did submit that they wanted to speak virtually, and I included in your packet, and they're online wishing to speak. David Sokolowski.
Okay.
Let me unmute him just a moment.
Mr. Sokolowski, floor is yours.
It shows he's speaking, but there's no audio.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
We are now. Go ahead, start from the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, my name is David Sokolowski, and I currently live in Tempe, but I was told by the chair of the Brentwood neighborhood that if I can't afford to live in Tempe, then I should leave. This statement is wrong for many reasons, and it's a shame to think that there are teachers who might actually leave the city. The chairs of the neighborhoods will not represent renters, and there are efforts to remove the density from Donnell Plaza, the one property in my neighborhood that Tempe can guarantee will include affordable housing. The chances of solving the housing crisis is higher if we allow for more flexibility than 25 units per acre in places like Southern Ave. The majority of the community working group asked for increased density. I was one of them. The majority of Tempe residents want a community that is more affordable and inclusive, more walkable and sustainable. Increasing density is the first step to advance many city performance measures. and we can't afford to wait 10 years. In the case of our housing inventory, we have to solve the housing supply shortage because we need to prevent prices from outpacing wages. We're never going to solve the affordable housing crisis if we can't even fight inflation. Tempe has lost most of its affordable housing, and by 2030, there will be nothing left. The rents have doubled since I moved here in 2013, and we need to take action now before the rents cost $3,000 a month, like in San Francisco. Housing prices will have to increase significantly to get 25 units per acre to pencil out. Otherwise, why aren't we seeing development in places like Southern Ave? I know 25 units per acre doesn't pencil out for the city of Tempe either, because we need to build 20,000 low-income units. We can't afford to purchase that much land. Allowing the city to be overwhelmed by poverty isn't an option either. This commission has a responsibility to provide recommendations that are considered to be in the best interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. The housing crisis is a public health concern and a public safety concern. 70% of Tempe's population will be renters by 2030, and more people are cost burdened by rent every year. While you're listening to complaints about neighborhood character, remember that the welfare of the entire city is at risk. The city of Tempe is creating a no-win scenario, and we won't be able to solve the housing crisis. NIMBYs don't want single-room occupancies, they don't want ADUs, they don't want duplex, they don't want apartments, and high-rises are their worst fear, despite the fact that high-rises use the least amount of land and are more likely to protect the core integrity of the neighborhoods. We need a plan that has a balanced approach. It should consider the need for housing in all neighborhoods, and it should guide our growth in a way that is inclusive and equitable for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, those were all the names and comment cards that were submitted. Did we miss anybody? Get my attention now.
Submitted comments today about 2 o'clock.
We all of those were printed off for us, and we got a chance before the meeting to read them.
Okay, thank you.
But what's your name?
Dale Graves.
Yes, those were submitted. Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, then I will close the public comments portion of tonight's meeting. At this point, I would ask our applicant, Ambika and team, if you'd come on back up, is there anything that you wish to specifically respond to or address in all of the comments that you heard?
Thank you so much, Chair, for that opportunity. Yes, I do have a few comments that I would like to make. We do appreciate all these comments we've been getting and listening, and we do respect all the different sorts of comments. Very often we get comments both sides of the spectrum, sometimes a little more density, sometimes a little less density, and then sometimes from the neighborhood perspective, sometimes from the renter's perspective and the business perspective. So many things. Staff is kind of in the middle of all of these things, and the plan draft that you see is an attempt to balance all of that. And you got a sample of those also that you heard. But just a few points that I wanted to make is usually some people are talking about transit, which we really appreciate, and City of Tempe is big in transit and also on 20-minute city. In order for the transit to operate, some minimal amount of optimum density is required. There's a lot of investment that the government has done and the public have done on the transit sector, both on the light rail and also the streetcar and circulators and bus. So certain level of density makes that feasible. Otherwise, people will all have to continue to drive in the cars. And there is also, sometimes the traffic and transits is something totally not under control of Tempe. As planners, we know that we live in the crossroads of a 5 million strong metro. People pass through. We have highways, we have freeways. People go from one place to another. We are a very vibrant part of the community. There are more people who work here than live here. So some of those things come with the territory because we have jobs, there's economic development, and some of those things are kind of discussed in the general plan. And also we heard that the population growth and services, and then sometimes the services might go down with the population growth. I just wanted to kind of read something that I got from the data. 1880, City of Tempe have 135 people, 1890, 897, 1908, 885, Going down all the way in sometimes in 1970, 63,000 people, 1980, 106,000 people, and then all the way in 2020, about 180,000 people. And usually from the planning perspective, with this kind of increase also, we've seen a really good standard of living because of the economy, because of the engineering and transportation and all these things that the city does very well. It takes it very seriously. We take housing and everything seriously. People live much better, live longer with the kind of urban growth and the pattern with all the services that the city is able to do. So even when the growths are projected, that is not something that we're planning for, but we know that growth is coming and the plan is to accommodate that growth very wisely. Also, many of the comments came through about ASU and students and renters and some of those locations. We have also addressed that in the plan. We are a university town. This is one of the largest universities by the student population, about 145,000 students. And because of that, there is economy and graduates coming and working and housing needs. And people, about 15,000 people work in the Tempe campus alone. About 60,000 students are in the Tempe campus alone. So some of the dynamism and some of the small issues and challenges are because of that we have addressed in the plan. And then also there are questions about the quality of life. Of course, jobs and economy, we heard both sides of the coin. Obviously, for that kind of thing to happen, certain amount of growth that is going on will continue, I think. And we are basically, the plan is trying to accommodate what is being predicted, and those things will also continue to be updated every 10 years. The MAG also updates it. We are not inviting, or we are not kind of creating any growth. We're trying to create a plan that best manages the growth. And also there are many questions about what happens to the shade and trees and potholes and transportation. There are lots of master plan that will follow after this general plan is approved and adopted and ratified. Some of them are like the water resources master plan that Craig talked about. Forestry master plan will also probably be updated. There's a sustainability and resilience master plan that will also be updated, and also a transportation master plan that will be updated. So many of the questions and concerns are those things that will follow up because the general plan is also on the high level thing only. So in general, the sustainability, many people seem to be okay with that. A certain amount of density and certain types of diversity is important to maintain the resiliency and also the sustainability of the city. There are questions about the International Green Construction Code, housing, and all of that. All of these things, the city is working in tandem with the general plan. The International Green Construction Code, as we speak, is something that we're working on side by side. And then anything that happens, the general plan only gives a guidance. Anything that happens goes through a public process. So just wanted to give you and the community a level of comfort that although there are concerns we are very respectful and we listen it very carefully that we've done for the last 16 months. This is not only one document that solves all the problem. As in every city, we have many other instruments and many other plans, and we take all of these questions very seriously about the open space, about water, about transportation that people have spoken. All of those things are in our mind. And so this guiding document will help us move forward towards that. That is something that I wanted to capture on a high level. Thank you so much, Chair and Commission members.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions for staff? Vice Chair.
Thank you for presenting, and I appreciate the public's comments. We've heard, passionate arguments on both sides, multiple sides. I don't think there's just two sides, but one unique comment that I heard tonight was related to, and I don't know if this was looked at, but it was related to the, looks like it's about a quarter of a square mile between McClintock and the Indian Bend Wash.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an opportunity there? It does seem like it's a fairly insulated piece of property, if that an opportunity there to increase density?
It's in a good location. It's semi-industrial. On one side is a band wash, the other side is a freeway. We actually had a meeting with Ms. Justice also. So that's something, some of the things that we have presented in the plan, it's the commission's pleasure. If you want to kind of give us guidance or make any changes on the Daniel Plaza or on that one also, that one I think is pretty ripe for any additional density also could be accommodated on that location because of the location itself. But what we usually consider on higher density is also a transit and transportation option and what future guidelines that we have. So that location can probably go for a little high density, and that has to be like I was talking about when we do the transportation master plan or water resources master plan. That's something that we need to kind of bring into consonance with. So that's completely viable, and the DRC has a pleasure of directing us. You have a draft if you want to think of any changes and approve it, or as it is, the staff is more than happy to accommodate all of that.
I have a specific parcel that we haven't discussed before that I just wondered if it had been discussed internally and what the thinking is. It's the northwest corner of Baseline and Kyrene. It is a fairly large parcel. It's currently a development called Chaparral Village, and it runs from Baseline, fronts Kyrene all the way to the US 60. It seems to, in the master plan, have a fairly low density for the location and what it borders and its opportunities. Do you recall that parcel?
We had a very quick, when we're looking at every parcel, when we're doing the drawings and the general plan, I mean, we have some people like Ryan Levesque who knows all the parcels and all the history, and even Steve. Yeah. So we did discuss that a little bit. That has a good location in terms of it's kind of shielded on one side from industrial location, the other side from the highway, and one side on the canal. So, you know, that's something that is, I think, a little open if we want to think of a slightly different density. But we do kind of do all pros and cons as planners. So one side is it probably can take a little additional density without jeopardizing and impacting anyone negatively. But on the other hand, the people who are living there should not also be priced out. And so there should be some kind of mechanism if we want to go forward to it for consideration on how those people could have the first right of refusal on the location. I've seen other projects in the valley where people go for a slightly higher density kind of, you know, housing development and so on. But there are covenants and the development agreements written in such a way that people are not gentrified out. So that's something we can definitely discuss.
I would just ask, is this, again, it's a living document. It's got, whatever goes forward tonight, it won't be the last changes made to it during this process. So I would ask it just to dust off maybe that parcel and see if what's going on there.
Sure.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Schwartz.
Yeah, I heard one comment this evening about, you know, the 20-minute city being removed, and I see it throughout the document. So I just wanted to confirm that language is continuing on throughout and remains an initiative as a part of the plan.
We, as a city, value that 20-minute city concept very much. All the transportation and traffic programs that we do, even the transportation master plan that we do, are based on that because that will reduce the amount of traffic from point A to point B if you can do many of your daily amenities within 20 minutes of transit ride and walk and bike and, you know, all of that. So I think that's kind of important for us. All the cities in the world are going for like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes city type of concept. And I think that will really help us going forward in terms of sustainability and kind of maintaining the quality of life. So that's something that we have woven, like the sustainability concept and 20-minute city concept are kind of woven throughout the document.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, discussion amongst ourselves. Any other questions or concerns? Commissioner Spears?
Just a comment, I appreciate all the work that both the citizens and staff have put into this effort. It's obviously very important to the city. I would like to see us go back to the original maps that were presented, which did have the higher densities. I'm not going to reject the plan just because of the density map, but I do think it's important that we understand that the affordability factor is a function of units available. And so the more units we have available, then I think we can start addressing the affordability issues. So that's, and just another, to everyone who's showed up to speak about these things, whenever a project comes through, it comes to this board for a hearing, and then it goes to the city council for 2 public hearings. And so if whether it's a large development or a small development, those properties are posted. You can see when those meetings are going to occur and show up and express your opinions about whether it's Danielle Plaza or your neighborhood corner, so that the commission can get and the council can get some feeling about how it does impact your neighborhood.
Other comments? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Well, I'm not making a motion. I'd just like to thank all of the people that attended tonight and gave us their comments. They don't go unnoticed or unheard. And where this goes next is to the city council. The staff will take all of these comments and put it into some other, maybe additional changes and recommendations. But then it's up to the city council, and that's really where you need to take this to the next level. We can only recommend, and we're doing the best job we can with what we have to deal with tonight. But again, thank you all for your participation. We really appreciate it.
And one more piece of advice. Staff and council will probably tell you that when you address specific concerns you have, the more detail you can give them. I have an issue with the 2050 plan as drafted because this particular corner, the northwest corner of Main and Southern, whatever, give them specific locations and tell them specifically. It's good to talk in generalities, but if you really want to see changes made to the plan specifically, give them something specific to work with. Staff has made hundreds and hundreds of changes to this since May, and will continue to do so if they really know what they're working with. And if you are persuasive and can make a good case for something, it will be considered, and not just by staff, but by the council who will vote on this next. All right. Motions or more comments? Commissioner Spears.
I move for the approval of PL, I don't have my glasses, 230107.
230107. Very well. You work with numbers for a living, don't you? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Spears and seconded by Vice Chair Johnson. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. For what that means, for all of you who are interested in following this case, this now goes before the City Council for a first public hearing on August 10th? August 10th. This process before them will be an open process where you can speak publicly or probably on WebEx also. So if you have thoughts or comments you wish to bring forward to that body, I recommend and encourage you to do so. Thank you all for participating and staying here this late. And that concludes our business tonight. I will just finish up the meeting by saying how much I've enjoyed being a part of this commission and body for all these many years. And I will miss all of you, but I will be sure to watch on Channel 11 or joined by WebEx for all of your future meetings.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
There will be a test.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
We did want to thank you for your volunteer time with the commission.
Well, thank you. Will there be a parade? No? It is too warm for a parade. You're right.